This podcast is aimed at the veteran community. It hopes to recreate a conversation taking place in any naffy anywhere in the world right now. We want to combat social isolation by letting veterans feel part of this conversation. If you're easily offended, please switch off now. And if you want to see more, please subscribe to this channel and be part of the community.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Veterans in Crisis podcast. Today we have John Richardson. John's a local lad. He's in the RAF, but he started off in the Navy. Welcome, John.
Hi.
You all right, mate?
Yes, mate.
So I'm not sure if you've seen any of these, but we'll do a bit of a timeline. Just talk about obviously growing up in Sunderland, and then all the way through your career, if that's okay.
Yeah.
If there's anything you don't want to talk about, just say I'm not talking about it. That's cool about that. So where did you grow up?
I grew up down the East End.
Right.
When the Goths were there.
Oh, I remember that. Right?
So I was in the Goths.
What Goth?
Where?
My sister lived there.
Was it?
Aye.
Where I was, there was 108. My nan was 106. My auntie was 104, and my auntie was 102.
Aye.
So it was a full-on family affair.
What London was that then?
First round.
The first one you went up?
Aye.
My sister was, if you come in across the Boar's Head, there was like the downstairs, but you had to walk up like a few steps to get in. She was that one on the corner.
All right.
I spent loads of my childhood down there.
Loved it.
Aye, it was all right, innit?
I loved it. Aye.
It was, very family orientated.
Aye.
You know, I know people say it's high crime, but nobody nicked off each other, did they?
No, not at all.
They went further afield for that.
Aye. Brought it round and sold it round the doors.
Round the doors. I know. You never get that anymore, do you?
Nah.
It's a disgrace.
Still don't understand why they put them big jars of coffee.
So, what school did you go to down there then?
Hudson Road Juniors.
All right.
And then went to Thornhill Seniors. But I moved over to Dame Dorothy when I was 12.
Right.
Because I'd gone to live with my dad for a year, and then my mum had moved from the Garth over to the Masonettes. So I came over this side, but still went to Thornhill.
Aye.
Because my mates were there.
Bit of an upgrade coming to this side, like in a God's country.
Posh side,
I see God's country. You've got everything this side, the beach, everything.
Red
And now you've got Hendon Beach, but it's not the same,
No,
is
no.
it? It's not the same. Hasn't got Sue's calf.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
So did you like school? Did you excel?
I didn't excel. I enjoyed it, but I was one of them who would always talk too much, and I've still got some of my school reports where it said, John, nice lad, but talks too much.
You're going to be brilliant on either.
But I enjoyed it. I played a lot of football at school. But when I was in the Goths, that's when the warships used to come in.
Oh, I bet.
And that's what made us want to join. So I knew from an early age I wanted to join up. So I wasn't really interested in school.
No, I wasn't the same. I did the least possible to get me marks so I could join the army.
Aye.
It was just a daft idea because I didn't have like a plan B.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I didn't think of further afield what might happen, but I just wanted to get in. Like.
Yeah.
I think when you were a kid, you didn't look that far forward, do you?
No.
What's the point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The sailors that used to tell all the stories, I had too many stories to worry about exams. I just want to get on.
You weren't alone with these sailors, were you, by any chance?
That probably is a bit dodgy now.
It wouldn't be allowed now, mate.
No.
Be a safeguarding on you. So you moved to God's country, and so I suppose you obviously you're still next to the river. You just the other side.
Yeah, so I moved over this side. Like I say, still went to school over the town way. Had a little milk round. Tried to join up in 92 when I left school, but that was just at the end of First Gulf War. So the recruitment had basically stopped. So I went next door to the Crees office when it was near the duck pond.
Oh.
And I got a job at Sainsbury's.
All right.
And I went for the interview, and I remember the HR manager saying, "So why do you want to be a baker?" And I said, "Because I'm good in the kitchen." I had no idea it was to be a baker. I just thought it was to work in a supermarket.
Oh.
So I got that job, and then with the job comes a bit of money. So I started going out in the town, getting a car and stuff. And I forgot about the military for a while. So I was up there for about 4 years. And we had a bakery manager, so we'd go in at 4 o'clock, make everything, and then he'd come in at 7 and bake it, and he used to burn it all. And it got to a stage where I was either going to Chinham or leave. So I went back to the Crees office, which at this point was through Newcastle now, and applied for the Navy then. So 20 when I joined.
It's a disgrace there's not a careers office in Sunderland, like, is it?
I think it's horrendous, aye.
Is this a Capita? Everything's done online, and you know there's one for the whole northeast in Newcastle. Is that HMS? Calliope.
Yeah.
Right, it's there, and I think it's fucking disgusting, like, because the amount of people that join from Sunderland,
Yeah.
we could have one little office, you know.
I think the demographics 20% of the military's from the northeast.
Right.
But I've got a bit to do with Calliope, and every time I go, there's no one to speak to. And like you say, it's on the sort of the river. So you've got to get across into Newcastle,
Yep.
off the bridge, down. And if people haven't got access to the internet, they're snookered because you're expected to be.
Well, I've heard that. I've heard young lads and lasses have phoned this capita and you do it online, or you speak to someone and they've said something like along the lines, oh, well, I hurt my foot when I was in junior school.
Aye.
And they went, oh, no, you can't get in, like.
Failed medical
Well, you haven't even seen us yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Aye.
That's why it's dropping. People are not joining because it's too difficult to get in.
Yeah.
Where you used to go to the careers office, you had an old sweat who was normally getting out,
Yeah.
tell you a few war stories, bring
Exactly.
you in, mostly lies.
Aye.
When it's brilliant, you do all this, just sign there, you'd be sorted.
Exactly.
But that was good. The human touch, like, was good.
Aye. I've said that time and time again. So through the career, obviously, you do different courses for promotion and stuff. And I always bang on about the sort of the recruitment side of it, because I do think we've got it wrong.
Oh, without a doubt, mate. I speak to loads of people serving and veterans and people who want to join, and nobody's got a good word to say about the way it is now, how to get in. You know, you haven't got the advice like you used to have.
No.
You know?
I'll go into like a few schools. So like I said earlier, I'd been into Barnes and Thornhill. And the Thornhill one, I got 2 lads in last year who both failed or been rejected by the army. One was for psoriasis, and one was because he had braces, and he wasn't sure why.
It's just keeping his trousers up.
Aye. And I'd said to him, like he said to me in this assembly thing, do you know why? And I said, well, the only thing I can assume is that it's maybe a hygiene thing when you're in basic training. You might be in the field or something. Or some people might join, get the medical work done, then leave. I said, have you thought about the RAF? I didn't think I was clever enough for the RAF.
Well, aye.
But that's what you're saying, Joe, because there's not a careers officer to talk to. If that was there, and the 2 of them's in the RAF now.
Aye.
They went through, did the basic training, their interviews and what have you, and I got a text message off the teacher from Thornhill to say they were both in.
Brilliant, man.
So
Brilliant.
just that one interface, like you said.
Aye, that's all you need. And what did you ever find out? Was it because of the dental treatment, like?
Didn't push it.
Yeah.
But I know most of them are quite funny, and if I think back to when I joined in '96, the letter said, if you need any dental work or anything, get it done, because if you show up and you need it done, we'll not accept you.
Aye.
And I remember at the time I was terrified of the dentist, and I went to Wilson's and Simmons in John Street, and I got 7 fillings, I think, because I hadn't been for years.
Aye.
And I got down to basic training, and the dentist did the checkup, and he said, you've got all the fillings in, but they're rubbish. And he showed us like the X-ray, and the filling was in, but there was nothing underneath it. And he basically pulled them all out and put them all back in.
So you went through it twice.
I'm not scared of the dentist.
Yeah, I was going to say you're out with the dentist now, aren't you? you and him have been through too
Not
much
scared,
together.
aye. But that's the only reason I think they might have said no. Like I say, I'm speculating.
Aye, it's just a weird thing, because I know it's good. At the end of the army, I didn't like it, but joining and thinking, I was right into it. Like I really wanted to join and stuff, and I would imagine getting turned down if that's something that you've looked forward to all the time. Being a kid,
Yeah.
that's going to probably piss you off, like, isn't it?
The teacher said exactly that, mate, because the 2 of them, that's all they wanted.
Aye.
And they weren't the best at school, she said. They were decent, but because they had that drive to join up, that's what they wanted to do.
Aye.
And when that was took away from him, in her text message, she said, when that was took away from me, he sort of lost his direction.
Aye.
But just stepping in and saying, well, have you thought about this uniform? I didn't want to use the word saved him, but...
Aye. Well, you have. You've put him on a career path anyway,
got a
haven't you?
career, aye.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
hopefully you'll enjoy it. Like, we had a young lad in last week or the week before called Harvey, and they, I know his parents, and he's 19. He joined the RAF, and he hated it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was just phoning him every night, talking to him over the phone, saying it gets better, you know, he'll be all right. By week 6, he loves it. You know, he's over the moon with it.
Is that the aircraft engineer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that one.
You just end up like, you get there, it's a bit of a shock. You are, like me personally, I was 16, hadn't been away from home, everyone shouts at you, and you know, it's scary, you know. And I was just saying to him, I remember me saying like, when do I get some sleep?
Aye.
Even the RF, you'll get loads. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? If you joined the army, you would have got 9.
Issued his suitcase and a nice comfy pillow.
So, going back to the bakery, that's a bit weird, because I was a baker as well.
All right.
When I left school at 16, I got a job at Muller's Baker, you know, the shops at Sea Road in the town, and Villette Road. But in Villette Road, they had the bakery at the back. So I did that for a few months, and then I've had a bakery before I started Vicks.
All right.
Before I went and worked at the homeless charity. I loved it. I loved it. It was hard work, getting up early and stuff like that, but everyone's your mate because you've got spare cakes. You know what I mean?
Well, when I was up there was a guy called Terry Mulligan, and he was a full-term army, retired as a caterer, and he was at the supermarket. And when I first started, the job that I had me on was sugar and the donuts. Well, I could make a 10-minute job last all morning, and he'd be shouting at us, "Get them done off," and you sort of giving him the fingers and stuff. And now you think back to yourself, he's done a full career and he's got this young prat giving him grief.
One of my jobs was like these cake shells, right? And there was like a vat of melted chocolate. You had to get a brush, thingy that, and then put one side till it dried, then they would fill them.
Yeah.
Obviously 16-year-old, I was like, really goes, "Oh, fucking come here, have you been eating that chocolate?" I was like, "No." He's going, "You fucking have." I was like, "I haven't." He goes, "Look in the mirror," and it's all around my face.
Same story. I'd got on to the shop floor, so I could have got sacked for pinching, I guess. Another beef that you get that you put in the microwave, beef and gravy. Got one of them, put it in the microwave. And when the stotties came out, I made a beef sandwich. And when this Gordon, the baker manager, came in, he went, "Have you been eating?" "No." "It's the same, I had gravy down my feet."
No. Slap it up, mate.
It's got to be some perks to start
with.
At 4 o'clock.
Fucking right, mate. You're right there. Like, you're starving, aren't you? You're not hungry at 4. When you get there, you're starving.
Especially when you start smelling it all.
The smell of bakery's lovely, isn't it?
Aye.
Bacon, bread and that, man, it's lovely. Like, God, I'm hungry now. I just thought about it. So, you're at senior school, you've left, you went to the bakery, then it's the Navy you joined,
yes.
Aye?
Aye.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the Navy? Because obviously I've just introduced you as in you were in the RAF.
The Navy, obviously, I said it came about because the ships used to come in.
Aye.
And I used to get all the stories from going on and stuff. But I went down at 20. Basic training was at Raleigh, so it was 8 weeks back then. Loved it. I think because you've got it in you that you want to do it, you push a little bit harder. So I remember getting to be class leader after 2 weeks, which meant I was allowed to go to the naffy for a pint. And the rest weren't. So there was 4 classes, and the 4 class leaders could go for a pint. They'd come back and they're like, "What's the bar like? Can I smell your breath?" and all the rest of it. Because I think everyone else is allowed.
Fucking gravy all around there.
Week 7, so I really enjoyed basic training. It's a shock when you've got like all your ironing and stuff.
Right.
And I remember they used to have a kit muster, which meant all your uniform had to be on your bed, and it all had to be presented like A4. And the staff would come down, and put a piece of A4 card on it, and if it was too big, it would get launched. Or then like the whole room would get a full inspection, and you'd be off doing your drill or whatever. You come back and there's like looks like just a big bonfire in the room where they put everything in the middle. And it's just to teach you a lesson.
It happens all the time. I mean, it's weird because you've got your big thick jumper has got to be the same size as your underpants.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? How is that possible? And they're going like, "No, it's got to be the same size." Fucking pair of underpants.
But one of the good memories I've got, like on a morning, you used to get inspected after you'd been to breakfast, and our instructor hated creases in the back of your trousers. So you go to breakfast, come back, and then the ironing boards were all like planks stuck to the walls. So it wasn't like a movable ironing board. But my class shared a block with the girls. So you'd all be in there, whip your kecks off, and you'd be ironing your trousers, and there's all the lasses and all that like knickknacks and stuff. Like,
Hey. So he didn't like creases where you've been sitting down, or he didn't like the crease coming down?
The creases in the back of your knees where you've been sitting.
Aye.
So when you walked out first thing, you had to be sort of pristine for him.
What a bastard.
Aye.
You think back now? No, I mean, I wait, mate. I mean, sitting down.
Well, what used to get me was you had to shave on a morning as well. And I didn't need a shave. I was probably 3 years away from shaving.
Aye, same as me, man.
But apparently it was to teach you time management, so it was the extra 5 minutes.
You'd see it like, because I didn't need it. I was 16-year-old, you know what I mean? I'm only 3 foot tall.
Aye.
So you'd gone out, and if it was cold, the tiny little hairs would stick out. And you haven't had a shave. And he'd try holding it. You couldn't hold it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get in there, shave it, go, get the razor and come out and shave it dry.
Aye.
You know what I mean? To teach you a lesson. I just got one of them portable, the electrics.
Electric ones,
Did that in the morning, like, because I used to cut myself to bits, like.
Aye. The one of the sort of the field exercises just before you finish, like your leadership stuff. I remember one morning, somewhere in Wales, I'm in the river shaving, and one of my mates went, "Look up the river." And he's one of the other lads peeing
Pissing
in it.
it.
Like, brilliant. Shaving with his eye.
So you like basic training then, aye?
Aye. Then that goes on to phase 2.
Is that your sort of job?
Like your professional
Pressing,
job,
aye.
And I joined as an aircraft engineer. So that goes to Sultan, which is in Portsmouth. And you do 6 months basic training, basic engineering training. And we do it on Wessex helicopters. So you'd go in and just do various like tasks on it, like take an alternator out or change a back wheel or whatever. And there'd be instructors there. And then by the end of the 6 months, your final assessment is like 2 days in the hangar where you get given a job card and you just go and do the jobs. And then they'll come at the end of it and inspect it. And if it's like satisfactory, they'll sign off. Because as a junior engineer, everything you do is checked, but they want you to do it on your own. So that 6 months is basically just getting you to a stage that you understand what a hydraulic system is, you know what how an engine works, how many components is in it, etc. And then that's like phase 2 alpha, if you like, and then you move on to your second phase 2, which is a specialisation. So in them days, it was Lynx helicopters, Sea King helicopters, or Sea Harriers, and I went Lynx helicopters, so that's another 6 months. So your phase 2 training was about a year. And a hydraulic system is a hydraulic system, a fuel system is a fuel system. So you just learn the basic sort of component part of it, and then when you get onto your professional, what you're going to work on, that's the intricacies of that helicopter.
Lynx helicopters are good, aren't they?
Lynx helicopters, aye.
Right.
And then at the end of that, you do 3 exams, or you did 3 exams, mechanical, electrical, and radio, where you sort of assessed doing jobs. And then there's another exam, which is a paperwork exam. So you sign stuff, which is your first column, and then your boss would sign it off. So you do like the paperwork exam as well. And at the end of that, you got given your sort of tickets to
start
to fix them on your own. Aye.
And where did you end up?
I posted first down to Osprey, which was down in Portland, and I was there for about 8 months, and that station closed, and we moved up to Yeovilton. So Osprey was specifically Lynx, because it's right on the south coast. So when the warships deploy anywhere, the helicopter would literally jump on the back of the ship and then deploy. But the station closed down, we moved up to Yeovilton, and that's where we shared with the Sea King and the Sea Harrier. So the station was massive then. And then it's just a case of bouncing between your squadrons. So if you were second line, you'd do that for 2-3 years. And then you go front line, which is the ship side of it. So a 702 squadron, 815 squadron. If you went on 815, you'd get assigned to a ship, but if the ship wasn't going anywhere, you wouldn't go anywhere, so it was just a different hangar. But in my time, I did 6 months in the Caribbean on a drugs, sort of counter drugs.
Any good?
It was hard. Like you say it to your mates and stuff, I've been in the Caribbean for 6 months, but you're doing like 10 days at sea, 2 days in. So it's typical military, like the first day in, you just get as drunk as you can. Second day, you're all hungover, and then before you know it, you're back at sea.
Aye.
So I've seen 14 Caribbean islands, but all I've seen is the first pub in the dockyard. So I've not done any sightseeing.
we had a guy on called Mark, and he was telling us that he did that, like, and it's the same crap, anything in it, you just can somewhere.
Yeah.
I've just been on holiday and it's exactly the same. I was drunk when I got there, and now I'm home. Can't remember anything about it. No. So what made you think about leaving then?
When I transferred across?
Yeah.
In the Navy at the time, you couldn't join as a crewman. So a crewman's the lad in the back of the helicopter, and he'll come down on the wire and sort of rescue people who's in trouble on the sea or on mountains or whatever. That was a sideways job, so you had to be in, and then once you got promoted to leading hand, you could transfer across internally. So I did that, and I was on the Sea Kings, and I had a flight in an RAF Chinook, and just loved it. So I applied to transfer to work on the Chinook, so do the same job. So I went across to Cranwell in Lincoln for me selection, and it's officer and aircrew selection centre. So it's the same sort of 3 days for an air crewman, airman, or an officer. The interview might be different, but the leadership sides and stuff. So I went across to do that, and I failed the eye test.
Did you?
Aye. And I said, but I'll do the job. And they said, but to join us, you've got to have eyesight as if you were going to fly a Typhoon. You could do the job, but we can't accept you on your eyesight now. So they sent us downstairs, sort of gather your thoughts and stuff. Excuse me, and they said, have you thought about being an officer? And I was like, no. So I remember ringing my boss back at Yeovilton and said, sir, I've failed the eyesight, but they've offered us this. And he was like, John, it's a no-brainer for sort of pension and what have you. So I went for that. Pretty big decision to make, because I love being in the helicopters, but I also love being in the Navy. So I walked away from both and went across to the Air Force, passed it. But I remember going back down to Yeovilton while I had to wait for basic training for the officer cadet bit to start. And I said to my boss in the Navy, can I go and sit the selection to be an officer in the Navy? And he said, no, you're too old.
How old were you then?
I was 30. So to be aircrew, it was 26 or below. And I could have been an engineering officer if I was better qualified. So I was over the age limit to fly, and I was underqualified to be an engineer, which is why he couldn't sort of allow that. So I think I waited for about 6 weeks, and then I got me start dates to go and start the officer cadet training.
And where do you do that? It's not Sandhurst, is it?
Cranwell.
Oh.
So it's in Lincoln again. That was 10 months. Sorry. Yeah, 10 months. Based in 3 different terms. So the first term, you do exactly what we'd done before, so the fieldcraft, weapons, ironing and all that, and then you have a week off. And then the second term's all academics, so it's all air power, conflicts, all that sort of historical side of it, with loads of leadership put in there. Leadership, like you'll be out in a group of 6 or 10, one of you will be put in charge, and you've got to get across this river, and you've got 3 pine poles, you've got a time in it, etc. So all that sort of stuff. And then at the end of it, you've got a week-long assessment on leadership on that. If you pass that, you move on to term 3, and term 3 is just bringing it all together. And you'll get put in situations where they'll put you behind a desk, and you are the gaffer, and you get sort of actors coming in where one's just getting divorced, one's just lost his nan, and you're assessed on how you deal with that. So they're sort of teaching you basic military skills, then a bit about your service, and then the last bit is how to be a sort of a junior manager. And at the end of that, you graduate from Cranwell, and then again you'll do your phase 2 training, whatever that may be, whether you've gone off to be a pilot or you've gone off to be a copper, whatever.
What was yours?
I joined as a provost officer, believe it or not.
Oh, God.
And the reason I did it...
Just wanted to bully people.
No, honestly, Joe, the police I'd met in the Navy, were you only had 2 on board, and he basically drove the ship, and that was it. So I'd never come across a police officer before. So at Cranwell, they told me that everyone would hate us. And then when I started phase 2 training, which was back down in Portsmouth, they told me that I had to hate everybody. And then my first job was at RAF Lucas, up in just outside St Andrews. So I was OC police up there. So I think it was 30 policemen working for us. And I could walk into the bar on a night and clear it. And I thought, this is not me. Like I joined the Navy where I was a helicopter engineer, where I used to thieve everything. I did a bit of time in the flying side of it, so you'd meet all the girls and what have you, and then all of a sudden I could clear a bar. So I did 10 months in that trade, and I went back to my boss and said, look, is there any chance I can remuster? And I remustered into something called fighter control. The Army will probably know it as forward air control. So you're basically there, two streams of it. Surveillance side, you're monitoring what's coming in the airspace. If there's any issues, you go through your threat analysis, so you'd be scrambling Typhoon after it, etc. And there's the weapons side of it. They're sort of a lot more engaged. So if I find an issue, I tell my boss, and then there's one more in that chain before we launch aircraft. And then it goes into the weaponeer's hand, and the weaponeer is talking to the Typhoon pilot. So what the threat is, what missiles he's going to look to engage. So it's quite a punchy job, quite a responsible job. But the main reason I did it is there's an airborne element to it. So we've got something called the E3D, which is the airborne early warning aircraft. people have probably seen it, where it looks like one that you go on holiday on with a big Smartie on the roof. That's the airborne version of my trade. So my plan was to get in that and start flying again. So I took maybe 6 years to get sort of nominated for that. Did it. And that's where I sort of had my first sort of breakdown, if you like. So the first sort of inklings of mental health sort of fell in that point.
Aye. And are you alright talking about it?
Yeah.
So how did that sort of manifest itself then?
I think because, one, I'd put loads of pressure on myself to get there. The course was hard. Like, there's 4 of you on the course. I wasn't going to win the sword, which is like the top student, but I was getting there. So I was putting loads of pressure on myself with that. And my mother's got a history of sort of drink, and she took an overdose, which was our 4th one. And I came home, and she'd been released by the hospital. Went to our house, sitting talking to her in the house. She's still sitting with a mug of wine, and I just said, I cannot do this anymore. Like, I cannot have you sort of in my life. I cannot cope with that side of it. I came away from there, and I was getting the train back to Lincoln, and I remember being on the train platform, and the train pulled out. And that one thing where normally you just look at the board, when's the next one? Go and get the next train. That was sort of the straw. And I just collapsed in Newcastle train station, and that was it. I ended up in hospital, back down in Lincoln, and then started obviously with the counselling and the medication and all that. But what the doctor had said in the explanation was, obviously the course was filling my glass up a little bit, then my mum, and then the train was just the last little bit.
It's just a layering effect, isn't it? That
Yes.
happens. Like, people don't think about it because they just think this happened ages ago and then this. But once it gets to a point where you can't take anymore.
That's exactly it.
You know, and there's no wrong with that. It happens to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, it just it manifests differently in people, doesn't it?
Aye.
So that was your first sort of thing. How did you manage to get only this? I'm asking this because if you were in the army, from my experience, that would be it. You know, you wouldn't be in a position where you would go back to graft.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's like now, but you were just frowned on. You would never get promoted.
Yeah.
You know, if that got mentioned. So was it different in the RFI?
I had a bit. I don't think I ever had any time off, to be honest. Yeah, the sort of the hospital. It's DCMH, so the Defence Centre of Mental Health. It's in with your work, so you'd be going to work, and then you'd have a medical appointment on Tuesday or something like that. So it was sort of interwoven with that. Then they introduced medication, and what they looked at was what I was responsible for. So where I said there's 2 elements of my job, or my trade, mine's surveillance, so I'm finding a renegade aircraft or an aircraft that would need to look at. I'm not speaking to the pilot, and I'm not responsible for any weapons. The weapons side of it, he is talking to the pilot. So if I did that, I'd have had my qualification sort of withdrawn.
Yeah.
If you imagine like your driving licence, they took the driving licence off me. I wasn't in any sort of kill chain, so I was fine to do my job and go through the process of getting back on my feet. But at that point, we've got a career manager, so he'll put you in a job that you've asked for if he can, and you'll be in it for 2 or 3 years, and then you move around, so you sort of creating this profile. My career manager had said, what do I want to do? What would make me happy? And I said, if you can send us back to the ground and send us back up to Bulmer, because the job before that I'd been an instructor teaching phase 2 students. I said, if you can send me back there, I'd be happy with that. So I went back to Bulmer. That was a 3-year posting, and I was instructing new cadets, so they'd done the basic training, and I'm teaching the phase 2 training. And then carried on the hospital side of it. It was down at that point. It was down at Catterick, and I was going there once a week, then once a fortnight, and then sort of weaned off that. And the medication was sort of written into me notes, which was all fine because I still wasn't in any sort of kill chain work-wise, but professionally, I would rarely handle a weapon. But you still have to do your annual weapons handling test. They took that side off me. So I would do the yearly course where you do your first aid, conference chamber with a gas mask and stuff on, but I wouldn't fire the weapon. So that was withdrawn from that. And that was the only impact, really. And then the meds start getting better. And then when I'd been off them for a while, you have various interviews and stuff with doctors and what have you. And my med cap was upgraded again. And then I was fully fit. And then on the back of that, I went out to the Middle East and did my job sort of in anger, if you like. So I can't speak for the Navy or the Army, but I know the RAF have looked after me in that sense.
It certainly sounds like they have.
Yeah, they look after you.
So, you said that was your first kind of...
Yeah.
So you had another one,
Yeah. 2016, I lost my nan. Because one thing I didn't realise is once you start suffering from like depression or anxiety or whatever, it's not so much that you can beat it without any sort of form of medication, because the way it was explained to me and the way I understand it is my brain's not producing a chemical. So because it's not producing serotonin, I need something to sort of help that. So I think once I recovered from the first one, I think you do get better, but there's a little crack there. And if anything sort of comes along, certainly in my experience for me, something came along that would impact it, because I wasn't fully fixed, in my words. If I wasn't fully fixed, that made it happen again. In 2016, I lost my nana. And my nan was pretty much my parent and guardian. Like I've said, my mum had a beer problem, a drink problem. She'd had that all her life. And my dad had gone off with his sort of second and third partner. So it was my nan who brought us up, really. She was always me sort of rock, if you want to use a cliche. And when she passed away, I just didn't know how to deal with that. Again, the RAF were brilliant with us, because when she was in the hospital, the last sort of 10 days when you moved into the critical ward, I moved into the hospital with her, and they gave us as much time off as I wanted. But obviously losing her, that impacted us again. So I was around again for more medication and down to DCMH again. And the process starts
all over again. I mean, I say this to everyone, like everyone's got mental health problems, you know, and it's nothing ever to be ashamed of, because it happens to people, you know. It happens more severe to some people than others. You know, things, more people can put up with more things, you know, but at some stage it gives way. Mm-hmm. I've suffered myself. Years ago I wouldn't speak about it. You know, it's only probably in the last 7, 8 years I've actually fronted up and spoke about it out loud. I mean, obviously I'm speaking on camera and I speak in front of like hundreds of people about it, you know, because I'm not bothered about it now. Yeah. But I felt a little bit less of a man, or soft, or whatever word you want to use, you know, because of it.
Aye.
It takes a lot to break that stigma, I think, like. Yeah. Those, like...
There's certain... I don't know if it's how you brought up or your age or whatever, but colleagues of mine, command chain bosses of mine, I've seen various sort of reactions to it. One actually said to me he felt like he was walking on eggshells around me, and I apologised to him for that, and that's not for me to apologise.
No,
do you know what I mean? He's in a position of command over me. So in the forces now, it's down to him to go and do a course or whatever and understand what he's got. But by saying that and putting the pressure back on me, I just stay away from him. Do you know what I mean? Or you've had the other side of it where I've got a boss, I think it's probably 6 years since I've been under his command. Every Christmas Day, for example, he'll text us and say, how you doing? Or every so often I'll get a message say, John, how you doing? There's a difference. You know, I don't need anything from the guy who thinks he's walking on eggshells. Just be ordinary. Do you know what I mean? If you've got a joke, tell us it. If I've got a face like a smacked arse one day, make a comment about it. But by sort of almost excluding us, I feel more in my shell. So there's a difference, and we have. I mean, I did 2 courses in the last 6 months for me to help with it. You know what I mean? We have got a lot of stuff out there now. I sort of tentatively think sometimes it can be seen as we're doing this just for show, because it's popular at the minute. Where if I want to sit in a room with one person and talk about it, I can be a little bit nervous then. But definitely there's things out there that people can do to make ourselves more aware of it.
I think the more gets spoke about, the better it is for everyone. Because like I've got lads who are not ex-military, and because of the stuff that I've sort of brought out now, they all talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's great. Because everyone at some stage is pissed off. You know what I mean? And it's just how you deal with it. And if people understand that, I think it's a lot easier for everyone.
Yeah, I think I've done 24 years now, and the numbers that we've been cut down to, all three forces all achieve, and it's not in our nature to say no, I can't. So we've cut the numbers down, but you're still giving the output. That's got a massive thing on it, I think, because you put that much pressure on yourself to achieve. You're doing 2 or 3 jobs, you're spinning plates everywhere. That's the bit that I think, militarily wise, maybe isn't understood from an outside point of view. So we have got lots of people in the forces who are under care of various hospitals. And I think it's because we haven't as yet ever said, no, I can't. We'll always achieve, because that's what it's ingrained into us. We haven't got any union or whatever. And I think that's why you're starting to see the cracks now, because I've had quite a few people under my command who have ended up at hospital.
You're right, like you can't say no, can you? It's just got to be done. It doesn't matter what happens, it's just got to be done.
Yeah.
Whether you're working 24 hours a day, or that has to be done, because they've just told you it's got to be done.
Yeah.
And some of the shit like after it's ridiculous. I mean, speaking for myself, that some of that I'm not very good at taking orders anyway, but things when you were told to do stuff that you thought, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, it's fucking no way.
I've still got the stories of painting grass and painting tarmac.
I would talk about it the other day. Fucking, even when I was on holiday there, because we were all in depot together, and the Queen come, and we had to pick leaves up, and it was like a force 10 gale.
Yeah.
You know, in autumn, it's just leaves everywhere, and you had to pick them all up.
Yeah.
The Queen must never see leaves on the floor.
Yeah.
She thinks they'll all stay in the trees.
And smell paint.
Exactly.
I've done that, and we've had to swill water off the flight deck of a ship as well. In a force 8 gale. So the waves are coming over and you're trying to brush it off as fast as it's coming over.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know why they do it. It's probably just went on for that many years. People just stick with it.
Character building.
Well, that's what they say it is. Character building. So after you sort of got better, or you were feeling better, so that was 2016?
Yeah.
And we're at 2020 now, so because I met you last year, 2019, so what happened between 16 and 19?
So I went back up I've been based at Bulmer more or less that full time, because of what the unit does. There's the bunker bit that when I brought...
I was going to say, can we speak about it?
Yeah.
Because it was like fucking James Bond.
Yeah,
it was. Like, I'm not sure if I was allowed to see what we'd seen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so we went up.
No, of course you can, yeah.
And you said, like, right, we've just gone into that little kind of bungalow thing, and then underneath it was like seeing off a James Bond film.
Yeah.
Just loads of machines and that. Oh, it's mad. Like
Definitely.
everyone spoke about it when we've been back, telling people like, no, in coffee mornings we having that.
Yeah.
It was just mad. Like.
Well, Joe said he hadn't seen it, so if you want to spin one up again,
aye.
I'm not there now. I'm at Shawbury now.
Aye.
But if anybody wants to come up, I'll organise a visit.
Oh, we definitely would. Because I was amazed.
Yeah.
I was amazed because obviously you said just like gone in that bungalow, and then you in a thing went downstairs and it was fucking just like I said, James Bond.
Yeah, because of that, that's what that unit does. So that's its output. So there's the bungalow bit, which is the bunker, and then there's the school, which teaches it. So if you think back when I said the Navy had 2 hangars in the same place, it's very similar. So for someone working there, you either do the job operationally, or you go across the road and you teach it. So you can sort of flip-flop those 2 or 3 years. You can flip-flop backwards and forwards without really moving station. At the end of that 2 or 3 years, you'll normally do an out of area. So we do the Fultons quite a lot, because the station down there is still sort of looking around to see if anybody's coming at that airspace. And then you'll come back and you'll move trade. So I taught it. Then I went down the bunker to do it. Then I came back. I was in charge, if you like. I was looking after 16 instructors, and I was their sort of boss. So that was my first sort of introduction to command. Looked after that. Then I went back down the bunker in an executive role, which was the sort of, again, looking after a team downstairs. And then I came back upstairs after that one. And I was actually put in charge of a squadron, which I think I was doing when you came up, in an acting job. So I sort of held acting squadron commander for 7 months. And then just before I moved down to Shropshire, I went into another office, and what that office was sort of the surveillance standards. So it was like, if you imagine Ofsted.
Aye.
So I was just looking after what the output was of the surveillance team, what the instructors are doing, and making sure that they'd kept up to date with all the qualifications, all the courses and stuff that they had to do. And then obviously I moved down to Shropshire in the same role, and that's what I'm doing now.
And are you thinking of staying in, getting out, doing?
Like I said, I've done 24 up to now, and the way I've done that is obviously I did the term in the Navy, but you get given a 22-year contract. I did 10 years of that, and then when I transferred across the Air Force as an officer, we do 16 years. So I brought 10 with us. Realistically, I could have done 6 and left with full pension, but I was given 16. So that would have took us at 10 plus 16 to 26. And then recently they put an extra 4 years on that. So my 16 went to 20. So I've got a contract for another 6 years if I want it. Or I can leave now with 24 years in and claim my full pension. So if I'm being honest with you at the minute, I am looking at potentially coming out. I'm 43, 44 next week. And I fancy trying something else. So I mentioned earlier I've gone into schools and done various talks. I really enjoy that side of it. And romanticising a little bit, when I went onto the warship down in the river when I was sort of 10, 11, and that one sailor sort of told us his stories, I thought, I want to do this. If I'm in a classroom environment where maybe I go back down the East End or whatever, and I can tell various stories of where I've been, what I've done, you might get one or two sort of joining up, and I love the idea of that. So I'm going to keep sort of volunteering at the schools, and I've got an active eye sort of on teaching assistant jobs. It's just a case of at the minute, which I know we've spoke about in the past, and a load of people who've sort of involved with Veterans in Crisis, it's making that jump.
Yeah, it is.
And it's scary.
Oh, it is. Well, it is. Yeah, I mean, you've done it for 24 years, so
Yeah.
it's going to be scary. But I mean, we hopefully we're putting a bit into sort of mentor kids who's a bit troubled, you know, because I came up with the idea because, in all honesty, veterans and troubled kids are quite similar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it'll be a good mix.
Yeah.
You know, because literally everyone swears, you know. People, you get spoken to like an adult. It doesn't matter if you're a kid at school.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be a totally different environment. I mean, I don't know what Ofsted will think about that, like, but
Yeah.
the kind of way we would run it, it would be like that. And then we would hope that maybe they would be interested in joining the forces.
Yeah.
And because of that, then hopefully the forces will give us money
Yeah.
for doing that. You know, because I need to find the money to pay for this building.
Yeah.
I'm looking at all kinds of avenues of different things that we can sort of get funding for.
Yeah.
And basically, I'm not giving myself any limitations. I'm thinking of everything, like,
Yeah.
because it needs paying for. So that doesn't really matter. I've got a meeting at the end of the month that something might happen of taking Vix to Essex, moving it across the whole of Essex.
Right.
If that comes off, brilliant. I've been asked to do a speech about homelessness down in London for a couple of days in March. I mean, all these are opportunities that hopefully that we can make Vix grow, you know, not for my personal benefit because I'm happy here. I'd rather just be in Sunderland.
Yeah.
But we need the money, so I'll just prostitute myself.
Just get out
I'll
there
just
and
do it.
Yeah.
I'll just do it for a bit, you know. You know, I don't want to. I would never want to be like the head of a massive organisation.
Yeah.
I'm happy just being in Sunderland.
Yeah.
You know, that would do me for the rest of my career, like.
Yeah.
But if it did grow and it was big and, you know, great. But I like being in here with the clients and that. That's why I did it. You know, I don't want to be just sitting in the office and not relating to people. I have too much of a laugh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want to come to work and the atmosphere. I want other people to come to work and think, oh, it's going to be great at work today, because you spend more time at work than you do at home. So you might as well have a laugh when you're there.
Yeah.
And the beauty of this building is the clients are in. So the clients are in and out all the time, different conversations. And you can see that they're cheered up by it,
Yeah.
rather than being sit at home by themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, they're here at 9 o'clock in the morning, leave at 5.
Yeah.
it's great by me. You know, I much prefer somebody doing that than sitting at home. Because you sit at home, and then you think of drinking, taking drugs, or even if you're not doing any of them, you can feel depressed. You know, fucking daytime telly, man. It's
Yeah,
not good, is it?
I know.
It's not good. Even though they're watching Netflix and that downstairs, it's not loose women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you're in and around various people as well,
Yeah.
rather than just sitting in the house on your own.
And there's food for them, yeah.
Aye.
You know, people were lucky enough, like Morrison's and Greg's and stuff, give us food all the time.
Aye.
So people can not only, we don't call them food parcels, we call them a ration replen,
Yeah.
right? So it's different, even though it's the same.
Uh-huh.
So they can take a bag of food away with them, or they can just make food downstairs. It's a fucking idea, like.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's something that I think that's been needed, and I think the way that we do it, it's different to anybody else. And I think that's what's caught the imagination of the public, like,
Yeah.
or at least the veteran population, definitely, because everyone said that they've never, even though they've been to the Legion or Help for Heroes or whatever, it's been out like this, like, and I hope it carries on like that.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
And I hope everything in the future works out for you as well, mate, because I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and obviously if you do leave, come here, you don't have to be in crisis,
Yeah.
just come here and knock around anywhere,
No, I'd
and
love to.
hopefully volunteer or hopefully help us with if we get this contract to the teach the kids and stuff.
Anything you need, mate.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much for coming, mate.
Cheers, Joe.
Cheers, man. Thanks.